Hi everybody. Today we're going to take a look at War of the Worlds, an obscure war game published in 1980 by Task Force Games. There are several games that cover this topic. This one might be the best of the lot. It is a case where you can't judge a book by its cover. It has the most garish, gaudy box art ever, but as soon as you start reading the rules, you realize this game is different, that it has really fun mechanics, and that it actually further develops the H.G. Wells science fiction alien invasion lore. Not only do you get to play out a pretty faithful rendition of the original narrative, the rules provide a little backstory at the outset using a bit of artistic license to set the stage for this light hex encounter wargame. Wells never really expounded that much on the Martians' motivations, war strategies, stuff like that at the start of his book, beyond suggesting the whole alien gambit grew out of a general envy and jealousy of Earth by Mars. This game provides the players with a really cool explanation as to why the invasion takes place the way it does, the limitations, the variables faced by each side, the rationale for attacking London, and it all sounds good to me, and it demonstrates a true appreciation for the source material, so that's excellent. One person plays the aliens, the other plays humans. The Martian player wins the game if they score 125 or more victory points by the end of 12 turns. 3-point score for each operational tripod at the end of the game. 1-point scores for each surviving cylinder at the end of the game. They are the landing devices that carry the alien fighting contraptions to Earth. Just like in the novel, they are immobile sites, but they also have combat capabilities. And finally, the most fun aspect of the game, 1-point scores for each hex of London burned down and destroyed by the tripods. All the tripods have to do is enter a yellow hex on the basic game map, and the site is automatically destroyed. Martians, unopposed in urban spaces, flatten everything with their heat rays as they go. It's so much fun for the Mars player. You will notice that in this video I'm playing on a modified map. I made it myself with Hexographer software about 9 years ago. Time flies. Anyway, I uploaded it to BGG, so feel free to print and play it. My map is the exact same layout as the original. It's just bigger, a bit more colorful, and it has neighborhood labels and landmark sites. Once you have the map laid out, you discover even the setup is fun and interesting in this game as well. First, the Martian player secretly chooses the human attack table to be used in the game. This will be one chart out of 6 possibilities. They look like this. The numbers represent kill results humans need to roll on 3d6 when attacking a tripod or a cylinder. All combat for the human player is resolved with 3d6 rolls in this game, in fact. So you could think of this chart as something like shields or armor configurations for the aliens. For example, as the alien player, if you were to want extra protection against combined cavalry and artillery attacks, you would go with human attack table number 1. Because as you can see, unless the human player rolls really low or really high with 3d6, their attack will do nothing. And that's a really interesting thing about this game. The alien units don't retreat or ever get disrupted as a result of being attacked. It's either a lucky kill by the humans or no effect whatsoever. I imagine in this story, the aliens are about 75 or 100 or so years ahead in technology, but they aren't exactly so radically advanced that they are invulnerable. Like a lot of other science fiction stories similar to this one, the humans have to experiment with different types of attacks to determine the best ways to destroy the aliens. Through experience, we found that just having one copy of these charts is not enough. Make a second copy of these and give one set to the human player. That way they can keep the alien player honest about hit results. If they roll an iffy number like 5 or 14, they have to ask the alien player if it's a kill result on the human attack table selected for the game. Over time, if the human player is taking notes, they should be able to learn which chart the aliens are using and what the best type of attacks are to use against the Martians. However, there is a special rule in the game that can also help the Mars player. If and when their vulnerabilities are exposed, they are allowed to remodulate their shields, select a new human attack table. If they don't attack for an entire turn and every tripod ends its movement next to a cylinder. So after the aliens have their shields sorted out, the human player secretly chooses a human deployment chart. It's going to be 1 out of 6 possibilities. They look like this. They have hex numbers on them where new units can appear, so they are supply depot sites. These can be destroyed by the aliens, and if they are all destroyed, the human player will be unable to deploy any more reinforcements for the remainder of the game. So it is very important for the human player to keep at least one or two of these sites inactive, in reserve, or completely secret until the closing stages of the invasion. Smart people playing the bad guys are going to go after these sites hardcore. So next, the Martian player secretly writes down a target hex for each cylinder that will land at the start of turns 1 through 10. This is all planned in advance. I made a sheet for the alien player to use to keep all this information straight. The 4-digit hex IDs will go on the lines next to the turn number. The landing process isn't exactly a straightforward process for the aliens. They have a few things to worry about here, as we will see a bit later. Once Mars has their invasion plan written down, the human player places their initial forces, which consists of just 2 infantry, 2 cavalry, and 2 cannon units, 6 units total in any city hex to start. So the humans don't have much to begin the game. By the way, no more than 2 human units are allowed per hex. And you'll notice I also used modified counters for all my war games. If I really like the war game, I'll find extra Scrabble tiles and mount the counters onto them. I also found different images for the human unit types. Some of the original graphics I didn't really like. Anyway, so now let's take a look at the turn sequence. As I explain the rules and demonstrate some gameplay elements, as always, I will squeeze in and mention some upgrades and little modifications you could try that also might enhance your gaming experience. The turn sequence is straightforward. It goes as follows. The Martian player lands a cylinder. Human player moves units that aren't disrupted. More on that later. Human player deploys reinforcements. Human player reforms disrupted units, and Martian player moves. And then finally, the Martian player will attack. So now we have to describe how the Martians actually land. They choose a target hex for each of their cylinders. Each cylinder contains 3 tripods. But as in the book, in this game, the cylinders are fired from a gigantic cannon on Mars, which isn't always accurate. They may not come down on their intended target spaces. The Mars player rolls 1d6 for every cylinder. They get 1 per turn for the first 10 turns of the game. On a 1 to 2 result, they land where they are supposed to. On a 4 to 6, they go off target. Then, using the compass printed on the map, another 1d6 roll determines what direction off target they fall, and then another 1d6 roll determines by how many hexes. So why is this important? It's important because certain terrain types pose a danger to the cylinder's ability to successfully land. For example, if a cylinder lands on a city space, it flattens the area in a giant explosion, yes, but on 1 to 2 result, on a 1d6 roll, the cylinder is also destroyed before it can even deploy, and the 3 tripods inside it are lost as well. It's even worse for the Martian player if one of these things falls into a deep Thames River space. There is a 50% chance of losing the device in that case. So you can see how this part of the game adds some tension and interest for both sides. The best result for the bad guys is to have their units come down as close to the edge of London as possible, I would think. In step 2, the humans get to move their units. This part of the game takes the most care to play because there are movement restrictions on the different human units. I blew up the human movement chart and put it on a separate piece of paper. The one that comes in the game is buried in the rules. So it's handy to separate all the charts in the game from the rules, make them all larger, and provide copies to both players. The human movement chart looks like this. There are 2 important takeaways from this chart, in my opinion. First, you'll notice human units can't really move far unless they travel by rail. This is especially true for cavalry and artillery in city spaces. After you move a piece, it's a good idea to tilt the unit sideways so you can always keep track of what has moved and what hasn't. And another important concept to remember here is whenever a friendly unit moves next to an enemy unit, their movement ends. This applies to the tripods as well. It doesn't mean in subsequent turns adjacent units are locked in place. Both sides can begin their movement by disengaging the enemy, but as soon as they touch an enemy after the first move, they have to re-engage. There is a 2 unit per hex max for the humans. The next step is the human attack phase. So the cool thing here is the human player can't actually attack the Martians first. They have to wait until the Martians become hostile. The tripods always get the first attack. Usually the Martians wait at least a few turns before attacking. More on this later. War is inevitable though. And when the time comes, the humans pre-designate all their attacks. There isn't supposed to be any changing things up on the fly between individual battles. Like I said earlier, everything is resolved by 3d6 rolls. 2 different human unit types can combine to attack a single target in a distinct battle, in which case the human player would roll 2 times 3d6, 1 for each unit. The human player also gets 3 battleship/dreadnought units over the course of the game. They can only move along deep river spaces. Their combat is resolved by a single 1d6 roll, so it's even more simple than the more conventional ground combat in this game. And we have already looked at the human attack tables. Humans generally need to roll really high or really low to destroy alien units. So after attacking, the human player deploys reinforcements. They only get 3 units every turn, 1 of each type, until the Martians become hostile. The space amount doubles after the aliens attack, so they eventually get 6 new units instead of just 3 every turn, if they have enough supply depots left. 2 turns after the Martians attack, the human player can also deploy its first dreadnought unit. You get 3 of those in the game total. After the human player places new units, they can reform any disrupted units on the map, which I will explain more as I go over Martian movement and combat results. So as far as the aliens are concerned, their tripods can move 4 hexes a turn. It's that simple. Terrain doesn't affect them. They can even wade across deep Thames River hexes. They trash and destroy every hex they move through. The only thing that interrupts tripod movement is human units. Tripods have to stop and fight humans whenever they are adjacent to them. So the challenge for the humans becomes setting up lines of defense, hopefully multiple layered ones, but it's often not possible. If a tripod busts into London unopposed through a gap, it's a disaster for the human player. Additionally, 3 tripods can fit in 1 hex. The way the Martian player attacks is pretty cool as well. Each Martian unit attacks once each turn. They roll 2d6 on the Martian attack table. It looks like this. You will notice that a single tripod can target up to 4 adjacent human units with a single roll. However, if more human units are targeted in a single attack, it is less likely that they will be hit by the aliens. The humans also get the benefit from terrain dice roll modifiers. As you can see, they are hardest to hit in city spaces. But do you really want to be fighting the tripods off right inside London? I don't know. It's a tough call. It really is. You'll also notice the disrupted result. Disrupted human units have to retreat 2 hexes. They get turned upside down. They cannot move or attack until they get reformed at the end of the human player's next turn. Disrupted units that get disrupted a second time are destroyed. The tripods also get to advance 1 bonus hex in advance of retreating disrupted human units. So the disrupted result is no joke, actually. These results can be very bad for the human player. That's basically how the game is played. There is one other bonus feature for the Martian player. As the game winds down, the Martian player may convert 1 tripod each from cylinders number 8, 9, and 10 into a flying machine. I added a flying machine graphic to the reverse side of my relevant tripod counters. The tripod has to remain in a cylinder for 2 turns. So flying machine 8 would emerge on turn 10. So these things do not destroy terrain actually, but you can place them anywhere on the map beside a human unit. You sacrifice city busting for unlimited movement, basically. So with this brief rules explanation, I hope I have conveyed just how cool and unique this game is. It mirrors the flow and feel of the original narrative, I guess, with one notable exception that I do have a mod for. So fans of the novel, can you guess what it is? There is something missing here. In the book, the tripods are able to deploy poison gas against the humans. Not initially, but eventually they start using it. They have this box device that neutralizes the gas too, and it turns to dust, which eventually blankets the countryside so that the tripods themselves can advance into gassed out areas. So there is a suggestion that this weapon is harmful to the aliens as well, but they use it anyway to break through defensive lines. So I say if you want a variant that includes this detail, add the following mod. Beginning on turn 6, instead of regular combat, a tripod may deploy poison gas in any single adjacent hex. I made my own gas cloud counters. A tripod may not move prior to deploying poison gas. All human units in the targeted hex are instantly disrupted. The tripod using gas may not advance as a result of human disruption when gas is used. Nothing may enter a gas hex, tripod or human, until a tripod decides to neutralize the gas. A tripod may automatically neutralize an adjacent gas hex instead of attacking on a turn. Unlike laying gas, neutralizing gas does not require a subsequent tripod to remain stationary. It merely requires the tripod to sacrifice its attack capabilities for 1 turn. So I made some gas counters to accommodate this variant, although overall though, this game doesn't need much in the way of mods. It's just that good and fun, especially for the Mars player in its original form. I would make a rules summary, however. This is the one that I use. It's more like a turn order sequence and has helpful reminders. These come in handy because the format of the original rules is very old school, densely column text, kind of hard to pick through if you are looking for something specific. And like I said before, it's also very helpful to break off and blow up all the charts for this game because they are scattered and not very prominent in the original instructions. Other than that, I think this game is just awesome. It feels and plays like War of the Worlds. It is wildly asymmetrical, but surprisingly balanced. I have seen both sides win multiple times. It does things I haven't seen before. The counters don't even have numbers on them. It's intuitive, original, obscure, and not difficult to understand and play. You can mod it easily as well. BGG user named David Little uploaded a map of LA and more modern counters in case you want to play out the 1950s movie version. The game doesn't even take that long either. One evening does it. You don't need to leave it out for multiple sessions. Nothing like that. And oh, by the way, this game is old enough and has rattled around long enough in the public domain that you could, if you really wanted to, build it up from scratch as a print and play project, as I did. It's a shame the publisher went out of business 20 years ago. This title is a gem. It's on my never trade list. I would play this game anytime with anybody. And I hope one day you get a chance to try it out too. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more content coming soon.